Welcome, kid family. This is episode 1 of the R18 engine rebuild series. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, please consider subscribing right now so you can stay in tune with the R18 build. And if you are new to the channel, consider taking a look around as we have a lot of 8th gen Honda Civic R18 content. We turbocharged our Honda Civic and it's running fantastic. So hopefully here with help from you guys, we can build a awesome motor. So in episode 1, the game plan is to just get a baseline of the engine. We're gonna take off the valve cover. We're gonna inspect how the valve train looks like, how the casting looks like in the engine, just to see if it has a blown head gasket, right? If there's sludge in the engine, we can see that. We can see based on the valve train if it's a high mileage motor or if it's not a high mileage motor. Was it taken care of or was it not taken care of? And also the plan is to slowly start taking pieces out of the engine so we can get it into a bare block form. So we're slowly going to be taking pieces out, such as the fuel rail, valve cover, and I'm going to be throwing in a boroscope just to quickly take a look at what's going on inside that engine. Do we have some missing pieces in the engine? Are all the rods and pistons there that we can see? Or are the walls scored up? Or is it acceptable for an old engine that's been sitting for a long time? Alright guys, it is the moment of truth to take the valve cover off and see really how the head looks like. That will give us a clue what is the condition of the engine, and hopefully we find out it's a good condition engine. Alright, first impressions. It definitely looked like it had the valve cover replaced at some point in time because of the gasket maker that I can see that was put on by the timing cover chain. But yeah, that's a good looking engine right there. But overall, this is a good looking motor. I don't see any, like literally any deposits on the aluminum head as far as like old oil, you know, not having frequent oil changes. You don't see any of that, which is a good plus. The engine did not have any spark plugs in the cylinders, which isn't the best thing because it can introduce moisture into the cylinders easier, so I'm hoping that's not a problem. Once we got the fuel rail off and we got the valve cover off, I was excited to see and inform you guys that the cylinder looks good, the valve train looks good, the cam rollers or whatever those rollers are look good. I don't see any indentations of them or wear or marrowing that is of any concern to my knowledge. I'm a noob when it comes to engines, so I'm just going based off what I kind of know, what I've seen on YouTube. So by no means am I a professional engine builder or automotive mechanic, do-it-yourself hobbyist at best. But the valve train looked good. Once we took a closer look at the cylinder walls, right, like inside the casting, it looks pretty much spotless. The oil even that's sitting in the oil galleys and cracks looks pretty clean and clear, which are all amazing signs that this engine either was low mileage or really taken care of. The only drawback that I could see is that some of the springs have lost maybe a coating on them or whatnot, but that shouldn't really affect the spring rate or the function of the spring. It's just the coating. If the engine was sitting for a long time, maybe didn't get lubricated, that's probably what caused it, but not worried about that whatsoever. And once we saw how the valve train looked like, it was time to take the boroscope and let's have an eye inside the motor to get some clues. Going into cylinder one, the first thing we can notice is the shiny little pieces on the piston. It almost looks like detonation or pre-ignition. At least from this angle, it might be just a reflection from the LED light. Not exactly sure. And you can also see that ring, the groove on the cylinder wall here that kind of goes along majority of that cylinder wall. And I'm not sure if it's just the angle that's making it look bad or it's something we'll feel. Leaving the cylinder, you can see there's a lot of deposits at top dead center as well. And that's going to carry on over to cylinder number two. Cylinder number two, what we can see, the piston looks better already compared to cylinder one, which leads me cylinder one did have something going on. Cylinder two looks a little bit wet for some reason, and you can see some of that like orange rusty kind of looking thing on the top right corner of that piston. Leaving the piston, a lot of corrosion, actually more corrosion than cylinder one, carrying a little bit lower into the sleeves than cylinder one itself, which kind of leads me to believe either this was sitting for a while or I don't want to say coolant damage, but it's definitely been sitting if it's been accumulating, I believe, to this point. Jumping into cylinder number three. Cylinder number three, you can see, first things first, some more corrosion on the cylinder walls
going even lower. It's probably surface corrosion, probably not the end all be all, but cylinder 3 also piston has the same kind of look to it as cylinder 1. And look at the wall. Look at the wall on cylinder 3. Not the prettiest either, right towards the top, that center. You can see these grooves in the piston, and yeah, very weird. Not sure what that could be, if it's from misfires or what. Let me know if you guys know what that could be. Jumping into cylinder number 4. Cylinder number 4, okay, the valves are open and you can see a lot of wear on the cylinder walls. As far as the valves, the first thing I noticed on the right valve, you see the pitting on the top lip of that valve seal. Definitely looks like some pitting going on. And you can see on the cylinder, there's these vertical lines going across the cylinder walls, which kind of means it was either the piston was moving a little bit, some scoring, or this cylinder was running a little bit hotter and expanding more, thus creating some of these surface grooves in the cylinders. Probably nothing terrible. It doesn't look like it's super scarred to the point where you will feel it with your nail, but it's definitely obvious. And for comparison's sake, my R18 Civic also had these vertical lines in some of the pistons or on some of the cylinders when I tore it apart after blowing my motor.
Overall, the cylinders looked okay. Two of the cylinder walls looked like they had a little bit of a groove in it, which I don't know, might be a concern, but this borescope isn't the best either, and unfortunately I can't get the borescope to do like a fisheye lens or turn it inside the cylinder. So it gave us a clue, but not the best clue and not the best look for the cylinders. But at least the pistons look intact. There is some spots of carbon deposits, but nothing bad at all. When I took apart my R18 motor, when I blew my rod on cylinder number 1, it looked even worse than this one. So I'm not concerned about that. The cross hatching overall looks pretty good. The only thing that is a little bit of a concern is the top edge of the cylinders, right? Like where the piston meets the top dead center. That area on some of the cylinders looked a little funky, like some rust is developing on there, because obviously it wasn't used, it wasn't being worn in, and it wasn't being lubricated. So I'm not sure if that's gonna cause a concern going in the future, if we're gonna need a hone, maybe a bore and a hone. So that's to be determined. Overall, I'm really happy, and I'm telling you guys, having this engine stand is awesome. You just move the engine around wherever you want it. I'm super happy. I know, whatever, I'm new to this, and this makes me really happy to be able to have that function around the engine and go wherever I need to be, compared to working on these motors that I have had back in the past that I would just have on the driveway and try to work on them, but you can't lift them, you can't flip them, so it was a headache. So this is like me trying to do things more legit going forward as I grow and learn more about things. And I have a little bit of spare change to invest back into content and parts. I'm also trying out a different way of storytelling, because I've been making videos where I just kind of point, shoot, talk at the same time I make the video. I don't know, man. I'm trying to make it more of a story setting where I voice over a lot of things, I show you guys, and it kind of chronologically makes sense. I don't even know how this video is gonna edit and come together, but hopefully it's a little different, and hopefully you guys enjoy it, because I'm just trying to try something new and hope you guys like it. All in all, I'm gonna try to keep these segments pretty short and pretty specific into things I'm doing. Right now it's still freezing outside, so we don't have the comfort and leisure to work on this thing all day. I'll be in and out of the garage until it gets too cold, and then I'm heading right back in. And we're trying to stay organized with all the parts. We're zip-locking everything just so we, again, stay organized, don't lose things, because there's a lot of nuts and bolts in this engine. So if you guys are interested in future content like this, go ahead, throw a thumbs up, jot some comments down below, consider subscribing like I mentioned before, and if you guys are interested in donating anything for the build, for the cause, get this puppy up and running and outperforming most of the R18s out there, consider helping me out. I'll see everyone on episode 2. Peace.
I ain't here for the money.